Call to order the regular meeting of the Page County School Board, Thursday, February 10th.
Mr. Gubler.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Yes. Please pause for a moment of silence as we get ready for the meeting tonight. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Fox, do you have any agenda changes or additions?
No, I do not.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Painter and a second by Dr. Painter to approve the agenda.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Gubler.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
Ms. Rich.
Yes. Can I have a motion to certify matters discussed in closed session?
I make a motion that we certify personnel matters discussed in closed session, section 2.2-3711A1.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to certify actions in certify matters discussed in closed session.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Gubler.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Ms. Rich.
Yes. Now on to citizen comment. I believe we have a couple of speakers. I'm going to read. Let me wait till he comes in and read this. Do I need to read it again? Okay. I'm going to read this statement to you real quick,
Okay.
and then I'm going to ask you just to state your name, not your address. The Page County School Board welcomes citizen comment during regular meetings. School board members do not respond to public comment during the meeting. All comments should address a matter related to Page County Public Schools. The school board will not hear public comment that involves an individual student-related matter, the disclosure of which would violate applicable confidentiality requirements. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual board member, nor to the superintendent, a staff member, or the audience. Speakers will have 3 minutes to present their comments from the podium. Please state your name.
Toby Longenecker. Hello, board. Dr. Fox. I was going to make fun of Patty for her small print, but I don't see her. I'm here tonight to talk about mental health and the budget. I've noticed on the agenda tonight that there are a few grant resolutions for approval, all of which directly or indirectly relate to mental health. The Vista grant supplying COVID supplies, the BDOE security grant to help our schools stay safe, an unfortunate side effect of a lack of mental health here and also across the country. And the last one, Project Hope, helped focusing on supporting students who experience hopelessness or homelessness by providing transportation, supplies, and emergency services. All these grants are amazing and needed, but all of them are Band-Aids on a wound that needs stitches. Since January 1st, Page County has had 14 COVID deaths and an additional 13 hospitalizations. I can tell you from personal experience, I watched my mom die over the course of 2 years, almost 20 years ago this April. As a 19-year-old, it nearly killed me, not only losing my mom, but watching my dad lose his wife of 22 years. Our family has not been the same since. That was 20 years ago, and mental health was not on anyone's agenda. That's 14 families that have had to try to navigate starting their lives over, trying to explain the whys to their children with little or no support. In just the last week, there have been several tragedies in our immediate community directly related to mental health. We need to be more proactive and less reactive. Mental health services have a waiting list of a minimum of 6 months, all the way from Winchester to Charlottesville. Our school counselors are serving way too many students to be as effective as they can be, and quite frankly, need to be. Hell, Stanley Elementary doesn't even have a counselor right now. And I realize it takes time to fill positions in the school system, background checks, transparency, and all that, but our children deserve better, way better than they're getting now. With budget season having begun, I think we need to consider increasing the number of counselors at schools and increasing their availability with compensation. We need counselors with flexible schedules to accommodate unforeseen student needs. We need counselors who are serving solely as counselors and not thrown into different admin positions. The truth is, heartfelt Facebook posts and the in lieu of flowers donations and the meal trains are not going to stop the next suicide. They're not going to stop the next person turning to drugs for comfort or numbness. We always ask what we could have done or possibly what can we do differently in the future. Well, that's now. The time to act is now. We as a community need to put our money where our mouth is and get in front of these issues before it's too late.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
I'm going to read this statement to you and then just ask you to state your name, not your address. The Page County School Board welcomes citizen comment during regular meetings. School board members do not respond to public comment during a meeting. All comments should address a matter related to Page County Public Schools. The school board will not hear public comment that involves an individual student-related matter, the disclosure of which would violate applicable confidentiality requirements. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual board member, nor to the superintendent, a staff member, or the audience. Speakers will have 3 minutes to present their comments from the podium. Please state your name.
Michael Nestor. The reason why I'm here, there's a Page County student, senior, who was in the chorus at the high school, and she was telling me that because she has not taken the vaccine, gotten the shot, she cannot participate in the spring concert. And she also said on the flyer that they have for it that if you aren't vaccinated, then you're not allowed into the auditorium. She said she's allowed to practice now with the choir but she cannot sing with them at the concert in the spring here. I really think this is wrong. I like the board to really to look at this because this is very discriminatory. Just because someone, like the student and her family, don't want the vaccine, they shouldn't be excluded from our activities. And that's the reason why I'm here, because I think I would like you to take a look at a lot of different information that's out here about COVID from different sources and about this vaccine, which, in my opinion, is really very dangerous for students, for young people. Yeah. On January the 24th, Senator Ron Johnson, I know he's a Republican, had a 4-hour conference, had doctors from all around the country talking about these issues, about COVID, about discrimination because of vaccines, different things like this. And I really recommend you guys to go in and to look at this, these talks by these various doctors from around the country. Look for various sources. I was on your website about the vaccines, you know, we don't discriminate supposedly, but talking to students now, I'm finding out it's just the opposite. And that's my concern. I like your also too, I think at this time we need to do away with the mask and all vaccine requirements. Let the kids be kids. We need to be get back to normal, to the old normal, not the new normal. That's it.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, on to the January 2022 minutes are posted for review. And then 6.01, approval of personnel action in the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the consent agenda.
Dr. Painter.
Yeah.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Langley.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes. Yes. On to informational items, 7.01 monthly financials, Ms. Breeden Wallace.
I am going to say we've extended 49.33%. And we have in balance with the person. I can answer questions possibly, but I'm not sure I can answer it.
If there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them back to the secret.
Let's see what I can come up with.
I might be able to. So, we are in balance with the person.
7.02 information paving project request for proposals. This is Mr. Bell, is he coming up?
On his way.
Okay.
Good evening, board members. As an informational item tonight, I'm coming before you regarding sealing and repaving the properties we did not get to last year. Our intention is to put this out to bid very early next week and anticipating coming back to you with recommendation at your first meeting in March. And the plan is to have everything complete by June 30.
Which properties are we talking about?
We did Lou Ray Elementary and Page High School last year, so we're anticipating getting the rest of them taken care of this year.
Any questions?
So that all schools will have new pavement?
It may be resealing, it may be patching, new pavement. It's going to depend on the specifics at those properties. And Mr. Williams and I have gone through the properties very recently, so we've seen what we believe will need to be done at each of those properties.
And you're going to get them all done by the end of June?
That's the intention. It may mean starting a little earlier than we typically would do, but that's the intention.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Dr. Fox, 7.03, fiscal year 23 budget update.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a very short budget update for you tonight because we'll deal with this next week. Basically, it's just a reminder to you all that we have the joint board of supervisors and school board meeting on next Tuesday night at Stanley Elementary School. And then next Thursday night, the 17th, I'll present to you the superintendent's proposed budget. And that's where we'll show you some actual figures and work through things together. So that's the budget update for this evening.
What time is that, maybe?
6 p.m. on Tuesday.
Thank you.
And we will provide dinner for you.
That's Stanley.
It is 6 p.m.
6 p.m. You are up again, Dr. Fox, for the superintendent's update, 7.04.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a couple of things for you tonight. We want to begin with a couple of recognitions. The first of which is it is National School Counseling Week. So we want to definitely say thank you to all of our school counselors, our school counseling secretaries, for the work that they do each day in our schools with our students, our staff, and our families. They support not only the academic and behavioral needs of students, but they also maximize student success by providing counseling, academic and career planning and development, and mental health supports. So we want to just say thank you to all of those staff tonight. It is also Career and Technical Education Month this month, where this is just a public awareness campaign to let people know about and celebrate the accomplishments that are happening in career and technical education, but also educate and inform about the opportunities that exist within the programs that we have, not only at the technical center, but also within our high schools and our middle schools. So we want to say thank you to all of the staff for their work, not only those teachers in the career and technical education fields, but the administrators and other staff who support all of those programs. So thank you for that work. And this week, we got a lot of appreciations in February. It's the month of the heart, so there's lots of appreciations. This week is also School Board Appreciation Week. So we'd like to take a moment to thank Ms. Breeden Wallace and Ms. Kim Burton for their work. We just want to say thank you for keeping us organized and moving forward and not forgetting things. So thank you all, and we appreciate the work that you do. And the final appreciation tonight is we just want to recognize the work that was done this weekend to showcase some of our students, but also to honor Black History Month and to celebrate the life and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We want to congratulate our student winners of our celebration contest. At the elementary level, first place was Hudson Cave from Stanley Elementary School. Second place was Vincenzo Abatiello at Luray Elementary School. And third place was Caleb Smith from Springfield. At our secondary level, first place was Sierra Bolyard from Page County Middle. Second place was Avery Orman, also from Page Middle. And third place was Tatum Barnes from Luray Middle School. So we thank them, we thank their teachers and their parents for submitting, and we thank all of the students that submitted applications and entries into that contest. This past Sunday, we did release the 25th anniversary video where you can hear the students read their essays. And there's some music from our choirs at our schools. We have the link there. You're welcome to go back to YouTube and watch that. And we just want to say thank you to our ITRTs, Kristen Vaughn and Nicole Brumfield, for their work in putting all of that together and recording all of that. Two very cute pledge leaders who led us in that, our choirs, and then all of our administration, faculty, and staff for their support in putting that program together. So thank you for that. Our monthly update on COVID counts, you'll see we are, fortunately, the state is starting to kind of come down. We hit that peak, and we're hoping that this trend continues where we see the line going down instead of up. So this is the state trend right now in terms of the past 90 days. The next slide shows you our two core indicators for the community transmission rate, and this is the total number of new cases per 100,000. You'll see that we've cut that in half in the last 2 weeks. So again, a good trend. We're hoping to see that continue and get down to some of those numbers that maybe we saw like last July, where there aren't so many numbers in the number. In terms of the percent of positive PCR tests, you'll also see that there's been a decrease there in that percentage from 43.5 when we met last to 30% right now. So again, hoping to see that continue to trend down. Even though we're trending down, we're still in the high transmission rate as a community. So I think we all know that, but we are optimistic that hopefully that will continue to lead us down. We are seeing again some increases in the vaccine rates. For the state of Virginia, we're sitting currently at 80%, and in Page County, it's about 58%. And you can see the updated numbers there for the percent of individuals 18 and over who are fully vaccinated as of 2/5, and then the percent that also have that third booster dose. And I'll share some information at the end about a booster clinic we have for staff and students coming up. In terms of our dashboard, we're also beginning to see some of those numbers trend downward. When we met on the 27th in January, we had 78 active cases going, and right now we have 42 active cases. So again, a positive trend down. We want to get that into the single digits or to zero if possible. So just some good news there. Certainly not done and don't need to stop what we're doing, but some good news in that area. In terms of level and school department impact, this is a new chart we started for you this year. You'll see that right now we do have sort of two spots where there's some outbreaks happening at Luray Middle School and Page County Middle School. Again, though, you'll see that many are moving back towards the low. We were mostly medium or some highs the last time we showed you this chart. So again, we're just going to keep our eye on things and continue those mitigation strategies that we have in place. In terms of quarantines over time, this is your January monthly average chart, and the line at the top represents the students, and the line at the bottom represents the staff. So this is just giving you a picture of what January looked like, and take into account we had, the snow days in there, and we had the holiday for students. So you're seeing some where you see that pattern of it being a vertical or horizontal line. That's where some of our snow days were in there. In February, just a few days, obviously it's only the 10th of the month, but you can see there we started out high and we're trending downward. So again, we hope that that trend continues for students, and you do see a little bit of a dip for the staff at the bottom there as well. In terms of positive cases over time, again, this is your January monthly average. Students are at the top, staff are at the bottom, and you can see we sort of hit that little peak and then have come down. And again, we want to continue to see that, and you see that peak a little bit coming down in the next slide, which shows you the 10 days of February, where you can also see that there's a decrease for the student cases and the staff cases. So again, some positive news in that I'm saying to you finally that we're not going up, we're going down, but we certainly have a long way to go, but it's a good step in the right direction. And then just a few other updates for you in terms of health mitigation strategies, just to come back to some of the things we had talked about in previous meetings. The KN95 masks have been delivered and they are available to staff. We're keeping our eye on that inventory. Air purifiers have been ordered. At this point, we had 114 staff members who requested one. They are on their way. We're hoping to get them soon. Again, with everything, it seems like if we think it's going to take a week, it'll take 3. But they have been ordered, so I just want to reassure staff that they have been ordered, and anyone who requested one will be getting one. The Vista testing program, we're going to begin starting pushing out information for that. It is a voluntary COVID-19 testing program. I want to make sure that that's clear to everybody, staff and students. And we're going to push out information about what it is in those consent forms later next week. But again, I want to stress that it's voluntary. We did get another shipment finally of the BioNex Now at-home test kits. Mr. Pitts has been on top of that, ordering them. They've had some shipping delays and some inventory delays, but we did get another shipment this week. So those are in the hands of our school nurses, and any students that are symptomatic can get a at-home test kit and take it home to be tested with. We are ordering more. Anytime the system opens up to order more, we put them in to get them. And I think just the biggest thing, we want to just keep reminding people, please, whether it's staff or students, if you're sick, we need you to stay home. That's one of our biggest, best mitigation strategies, is that if you're not feeling well, stay home. Get onto Schoology, get onto Class Dojo, email your teacher. We can keep you up with work, but we just need you to stay home if you're not feeling well. I mentioned earlier that we have the vaccine clinic. It was postponed 2 weeks ago because of weather, but we do have that coming up. So it's a vaccine booster clinic or an initial vaccine clinic for PCPS staff. And the health department was able to also include the Pfizer booster for any of our students who are 12 and up and are now eligible for the booster. So that'll be this Friday from 3:30 to 5:30 at the Technical Center. And it is sponsored by the Lord Fairfax Health Department. Information is on our webpage, and there is a link because you do need to sign up so that they know how many doses to bring with them. And it is, of course, free and open to PCPS students and staff. Just want to remind everybody about a PACA community event that's coming up with Sam Quinones Wednesday, February 23rd, having some conversations about his book, The Least of Us, True Tales of Hope in the Times of Fentanyl and Meth. And that is free and open to the public, and it's at 6:30 at Luray High School, so we hope that you'll join us for that. And then the last thing I have, I already mentioned it to you, but in part of our budget process, the other budget public hearing will be on February 24th. It'll be at 6:30 during our regular monthly meeting at Luray High School. So that concludes my update for you all. Oh, I'm sorry, that's wrong. We'll fix that. It should be 6:30. 6:30. That's all I have for you this evening. Unless there are questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cox.
You're welcome.
Mr. Benson, 7.05, the 2022-2023 draft academic calendar.
Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, we've handed out a second draft of the proposed 22-23 school calendar, and there are a few changes that we just wanted to go over with you here this evening as an overview. We did collect feedback from the superintendent's teacher council, and there was plenty of opinions there, and we have done our best to try and incorporate as many of those suggestions as possible. So as we said at the first draft, there are 176 student days in this calendar, so Page County Public Schools will be requesting that we go off the 990-hour time requirement to meet the VDOE requirements. One of the things that came out of that teacher council meeting was just looking for a little bit more of a balance between the number of ACT days, professional development days, and teacher work days. This calendar does ask for 2 flex days to be done by staff over the summer, so we don't really count those as much. But what we did do is we reduced the number of ACT days down to 4 professional development days in the calendar. Those come on August 10 and 11, so those are part of our back to school when we have teachers coming in and we're kind of working through the new different programs and initiatives, or maybe a refresher. And then on September 26 and October 28. There are 4.5 teacher work days, days that are specifically designed for teachers to have time in their classrooms. And those come on August 12, August 15, and 16. So those are days that teachers would use to get things ready for the back to school. January 2nd, and we'll talk a little bit about that change. So not coming right back with students, but having a teacher work day to get kind of things back after the winter break. And then January 20 is the semester change day. So that's the time at the high schools and for some of our middle schools where we turn over and we start new classes. So that's a day that teachers often need. One addition in this calendar that we didn't talk about at the first draft was a second parent-teacher conference day. So we had a fall parent-teacher conference day in the original draft that we proposed at our last school board meeting. But we did ask and talk to staff, and we would like to propose a second one. So we did remove an ACT day in April. And instead of having that ACT day, we would suggest that we have a parent-teacher conference day, and that comes on April the 10th. There was a request from the teacher council, and we do agree with this, that we try to make the winter break the full 2 weeks. So we did some things there. In the original draft, if you take a look at December, we had students going to school on December 19th and 20th. And so we've, I guess the term I would use, sharpened our pencil a little bit and rearranged the days a little bit. And instead of giving 2 days off in November to coincide with Election Day and some of the ACT days, we took one of those away. So we're just going to be out of school on Election Day. And then instead of having a second day following New Year's, we put the 2 days back at the beginning of the winter break. So we have the proposal here is to be out December 19th and 20th, but then we are coming back to school with students on January 3rd, whereas before we were actually back on January 4th. So we did put it on the front end. The other thing that we did in this next revision is we moved spring break around just a little bit. We talked to some of our neighboring school divisions, specifically Rockingham County, where many of our staff work and come from and have students there. And the proposed calendar for Rockingham County does have spring break falling March the 13th through the 17th. In the original proposal, we were the 20th to the 24th, and that was some feedback that came out if we could go ahead and align with Rockingham County. And so as we considered that, it does give a little bit more school time in between the Easter holiday and spring break. Obviously, sometimes it's a long haul from the winter break to spring break, so moving that up a little bit, I think, is favorable for teachers as well. I believe that kind of summarizes where we're at. Like I said, we do is in this calendar proposal go to school a little bit later than we have recently been. In recent years, we've been, coinciding the end of the school year with the Memorial Day holiday. But this calendar does propose that we would go into the first week of June and then have high school graduations that weekend. Which does, if you look at our current calendar, seniors are done typically a week before graduation and things. And this kind of leads us right to the end where we have seniors in the building and doing things a little bit closer to them. It is hard to get in all the different events. I know as we talked with this year's senior class, they wanted to do a senior trip to either Busch Gardens or Kings Dominion and kind of have that. Those theme parks aren't even open and we're releasing seniors. Yeah. So a later start or a later finish for the school year allows those places to open up and have some of those senior activities as part of their end of their festivities as well. So we have found, I think, that definitely works along with those ideas. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Like I said, at this point, the calendar has been seen by many. And I'm proud to say that I think Dr. Fox would agree with me, we've incorporated quite a few of the recommendations and suggestions that have been. Be happy to answer any questions.
So the 19th and 20th. Then, so my I guess, thoughts are, the more you back it in January, the better it is for if COVID's still around, if terms of time to make that settle out. But was that a teacher recommendation to go those 2 weeks instead of? You see my logic there?
Yeah, I would say because the question that came up was there were concerns about attendance on those 2 days, because it's just hard at that point. Everybody's kind of finished. And so we could potentially have some situations with attendance there and some things where we may feel like we're not using instructional time as much as we should be on those 2 days. So, and there was a request from them to consider when we have breaks like spring break or the winter break, that the following day become a teacher work day to allow them to come back in. So that gives us that 1 day to address your concern about COVID or things like that. But no, it doesn't give us like a full week after the holidays.
If you went Tuesday, Wednesday.
Go Tuesday, Wednesday on January, that's 10 days past Christmas. Allow the whatever infections to.
Yeah, that would put us then going the Wednesday before we would, because that would add another 2 days to it.
Right.
So we'd end on Wednesday, the 21st.
Right.
go through
That's
that.
just my
Okay. No.
logic of my thoughts, but maybe if the teachers want it that way, we've had that conversation before. Right?
One of the things we're trying to do is also build in some time, because we do exceed the 990-hour requirement. So if we have inclement weather, we're trying not to cut us short where we have a bunch of makeup days at the end, because what we have found with that also is students don't show up for that. We're trying to give us some time in the bank, so to speak, so that we can have old snow days, or inclement weather days, whatever you want to call them, and try to meet all the different needs.
Yeah, it did bother me, the inclement work day. I mean, the days that we had this year, because it allowed us more time to,
Right.
even though we still had staff.
That worked out well,
It
actually.
worked out well.
Yeah. Timing of that snow was pretty good.
Yeah.
I have two things.
Sure.
Maybe I didn't notice it last time. But it says the 2 summer flex days, May 31st to August 5th. Why so early, and what are they going to do when school gets let out?
So we, as part of our use of some of the COVID ESSER funds, we have re-enrolled with the LFCC consortium. And so what we're trying to say there to staff is,
Go take a class?
yes, there are activities and opportunities available with that. Also, we have folks that start to think, well, what counts as a flex day, Dr. Paving? And really what we're saying a flex day is when the school year ends up until a certain date. And the reason for the August 5 date is, believe it or not, we do have staff that don't do their flex day requirements. And then if that is indeed the case, then we ask those individuals to come in on August 8 and 9.
See, that's why I was going to say, why wouldn't it be August 9th? That would just be,
Right, so we say you have to have your flex day requirement fulfilled by August 5, because if you don't, then we're saying you're coming to work on August 8.
and most good teachers do that anyway, because they're like, I got my class left. Look.
Right.
And then my other thing was,
Does that make sense for the flex day?
it does, but I think when you think school years, you think July 1.
Yeah.
And then I'm glad you brought the thing about the Ward Fairfax, because I think about the custodians, like, I'm trying to clean the buildings. Can you please get out of the hallways? I mean,
Yeah.
and then the other thing was with that conference day all the way in April at 27 or 8 weeks left of school. Now, I understand it for your secondary kids, but I don't understand it for elementary, because a lot of parents think they only have to go if it's parent conference day. They should be getting in earlier. I'm guessing what helps it going to be for elementary to have a conference day,
I think at that point,
7, 8 weeks left.
right, that's when we're going to begin to have the conversation about possibly retaining that student, if that needs to happen.
I
about
hope
summer
that
school
happens
plans.
after the first semester.
Right, we will have been having those conversations, but we're going to know at that point, we're going to be closer to the end of the school year, and I think it gives teachers time to say, this is what we need, or to invite that child to summer school and say, these are the different programs that we're going to have in place, and we're asking your child to be in attendance.
It's April 10th. Now, if I was a teacher and I had a lot of days built up, that'd be a 4-day weekend for me.
We do know that. We have staff, and that's been an issue before. That we have staff that they travel for Easter, and they do not return on Sunday following Easter. They take the Monday following. So, we're trying to work with that situation as well. And, we originally had this scheduled as a professional development day, and the suggestion has come to make it a parent-teacher conference.
I guess I still don't see why a parent-teacher conference day is so late in the year, because at that point, you're SOL, and not just the test.
I think we'd like to try it and see what benefits come from it. I think it might be a nice way for some teachers to wrap up the year and give parents sort of an end-of-year update on where their child is, especially with so many kids potentially having gaps right now. It'd be a good conversation, have some discussions about whether they go to summer school, or even if we provide some materials to go home with kids over the summer, how parents can help us and continue that learning over the summer. We can look at the data to see how many teachers are absent And then I think, like we do with a lot of things, we'll just get some feedback from the staff to see, was it worth it? Was it worth, or do we need to turn that back into a PD day, or do we need to look at it being, a different kind of day, make it a holiday if we have that many people off or something like that. So I think we'd like to give it a shot and see how it.
Are they allowing parents to do virtual?
I'd just like to say I really like the input that you got from faculty. Great idea about meeting with seniors, and in my mind, what that does is just another way of showing we're listening. And you can't meet everybody's need or want or whatever. That's normal. But, and this is a chore to try to come up, just on a normal situation of arranging the days and all that kind of thing. But taking consideration with COVID and all that, again, I really appreciate you reaching out and letting people express, whatever.
I appreciate that.
Thanks to everybody who worked for
I think it's our goal to try and bring you a final draft at the next meeting, and so that would allow folks to start making plans and ask you to take action. Unless we hear different. Thank you.
On to our action items, 8.01, approval of claims for payment. Ms. Breeden Ross.
You've been provided with the claim certification with the total operating fund of $1,122,661.11. Nutrition services of $10,675.83. For a total expenditure of $1,118,326.96. The doctor then provided with the list of claims from the check registry.
I have a motion to approve the claims for payment as presented.
I make a motion that we approve, my mind just went blank.
The claims for payment.
Yeah, for payment. For this, for,
Second.
The motion by Mr. Sullivan Smith and second by Dr. Painter to approve the claims for payment.
Mr. Gabriel?
Yes.
Mr. Langley?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Dr. Payne?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
yes.
Yes. Approval of purchase orders over $10,000. Ms. Breeden Ross.
We have two. The first is for home depot, for pop-up air purifiers and filters. Will be 125 of those for $24,268.75, and that's coming out of such as free funds. The other is for Illinois Ford, for 2022 F-250 pickup truck for $56,175.
This is 26.
I know, it's incorrect.
Oh, so it should say
And
56.
that was my mistake. I have to correct it. It's 56. No.
It's like, I'm going to go there and get a truck.
Yeah, no, that was my mistake, and I'm going to correct that when I get it up.
I have a motion to approve the purchase orders over $10,000.
Mr. Chairwoman, I move that we approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
I'll second.
The motion by Mr. Dubler and a second by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot to approve the purchase orders over $10,000.
Mr. Langley?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Dr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Gabriel?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Yes. Resolution BDOE security grant. Dr. Fox?
Yes, thank you. So tonight we have a couple of resolutions for you, and we just need to read them word by word so we can get them entered into the record, and then we can move forward with the expenses. So this is for the school security equipment grant, whereas the Page County School Board has received approval and authorization during fiscal year 2021-22 on a grant within an existing state program for security grant funds in the amount of $143,698. And whereas the anticipated funds in those grants will exceed the original estimated budget for the fiscal year of 2021 and 22, And whereas the Page County School Board will receive the additional funds channeled through the Virginia Department of Education and grantors directly on a reimbursement basis. And whereas the grant award requires that the funds be used at Springfield Elementary School, Luray Elementary School, Stanley Elementary School, Shenandoah Elementary School, Luray Middle School, Page County Middle School, and Page County High School. And now therefore be it resolved that the Page County School Board, for audit and record-keeping purposes, to keep the 2021-2022 budget in balance with no increase or decrease of local appropriation involved, respectfully requests the Page County Board of Supervisors to appropriate additional state funds for the school security equipment grant in the amount totaling $143,000, or $143,698. And then the amendment down there just shows you where that is going to be used and how it will be dispersed. So we're requesting approval so we can have this money appropriated and we can begin the process of using it and getting reimbursed for it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution for the VDOE security grant as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gubler and a second by Mr. Sullivan Snoot to approve the resolution.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Dr. Paving?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Langley?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Yes. 8.04, approval resolution homeless grant, Ms. Breeden-Wallace.
Page County Board of Supervisors, resolution to the Page County School Board. Resolution to the Page County Board of Supervisors to accept an adjustment of the 21-22 school budget for American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth Grant. The Page County School Board has been awarded the American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth Grant, ARP Homeless 2. And whereas the anticipated funds of the grant will exceed the original estimated budget for 2021-2022, and whereas the Page County School Board will receive the additional funds channeled through the Virginia Department of Education and grantors, and whereas these additional state ARP Homeless 2 funds will be used to support programs and activities to the guidelines set forth in the project scope. Now therefore be it resolved that the Page County School Board, for audit and record-keeping purposes, keep the 2021-2022 budget in balance with no increase or decrease of local appropriations involved. Respectfully request the Page County Board of Supervisors to appropriate additional grant funds for the ARP Homeless 2 grant in the total amount of $28,000.
Have a motion to approve the resolution for the homeless grant.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution for the homeless grant. We've read.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Sullivan Snoot and a second by Mr. Lansbury. Do we have any discussion?
So what are we doing with this grant?
Yeah, I got a question too.
Excuse me. This one is going to be used to purchase a vehicle that will be used to transport students, homeless students. Oftentimes we have to go into other school divisions and pick them up and bring them. And vice versa, we work with them or into different places around the county to access different services. So this has been written specifically for the purposes of purchasing a car.
So it's a car that takes kids from other areas and brings them to our school?
If, for instance, say a student was originally in Rockingham County, was there, and that the family became homeless and ended up here, maybe living with another family or truly homeless, we would enroll them with us, and we might have to provide services to them. Sometimes the opposite of that might occur. They might still be living here with us but are considered homeless and have to enroll in Rockingham. So we would transport them because we want to keep them at their school where they were last attending for the least disruptive environment. So it means that we would coordinate with Rockingham. We might take them to school and they might bring them home. But because it's often out of the area, we wouldn't send a school bus for one or two students in that capacity. So it's just a vehicle to help with.
This is true homeless, right? This is not like the charter schools or whatever.
No, this would be students who fall under our McKinney-Vento program.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, it's kind of like we'll get answer all of these. Why do we have to do this? Because
So
I've
that,
never seen it done before, and I get it about showing you're gonna get money and get it back, but sometimes these things aren't falling in the same year, so I don't understand why we have to do this.
we have to do this so that the Board of Supervisors can then appropriate the money to us, because right now it goes to them. So then this is what they need in order for us to be appropriated the money so that we can then spend it.
But what if it's not gonna be that exact amount?
For these grants, they have to be within those amounts. Unless we spend under that amount and we have to end up returning some money,
Yeah,
but we
that's what I
wouldn't go
mean,
over
like,
this.
let's say ESER 3.
Yeah,
You might not spend that $218,000 this year. Are we gonna have to read this again next year?
yeah. Or we would make adjustments, we would make adjustments to the appropriations, so it wouldn't be that we'd have to read every word of this resolution, but we would make adjustments to the appropriations in the budget. So Ms. Seacrest would then put in a request to change that amount. But as long as the top line of how much we can spend, we don't go over that, we're okay. Where we would want to worry is if we spent more than we were allotted, and we
Yeah,
won't
'cause
do
it's not
that.
like we're asking, like it's a local match thing or something. I don't understand why we have to do this. I've never seen it done before here.
We did, if you recall, back in the fall, we did the really
No, I mean,
long one
in
for
this
ESER
division, I
Oh.
don't know that anybody else has to do this. I don't
in our
understand.
region.
Have the motion, and a second.
Dr. Baker?
Yeah.
Mr. Beaver?
Yes.
Mr. Laddsberry?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Yes. One more, approval of resolution Vista grant, Dr. Fox?
Yes, so bear with me. So this is a resolution of the Page County Board of Supervisors requesting adjustment of the 2021-22 school budget for Virginia school screening, testing, and assurance funding. Whereas a Virginia school screening, testing for assurance program was authorized in November 2021, and whereas the Virginia school screening, testing for assurance, or Vista funds are launched or to launch COVID-19 screening testing programs for the 2021-22 school year, and whereas Page County Public Schools has been notified of Vista funding allocation in the amount of $160,506, which is available for use on a reimbursement basis, and whereas these additional Vista funds will be used to support programs and activities consistent with providing testing vendors, supplies, and staffing to support an end-to-end COVID-19 testing experience. And now therefore be it resolved that the Page County School Board, in order to respond to the impact of COVID-19 on school operations, students, and staff, respectfully request the Page County Board of Supervisors to appropriate the additional federal funding in the amount of $160,506 with no increase or decrease in the local appropriation involved to the 2021-2022 school operating budget as listed and shown there for you.
Have a motion to approve this resolution for the Vista grant.
Second.
I need a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that we
Going through the motions now.
approve the resolution of the Page County Board of Supervisors requesting the adjustment of the 2021-2022 school budget for the Virginia school screening, testing for assurance funding.
Copy. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gubler and a second by Dr. Painter to approve the resolution for the Vista grant.
Mr. Beaver?
Yes.
Mr. Laddsberry?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Dr. Taylor?
Yeah.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Yes. 8.06, approval of the resolution for the American Rescue Plan SR3 set aside grant funding for before and after school and summer programs.
Resolution to the Page County Board of Supervisors to request an adjustment of 2021-2022 school budget for before and after summer programs funds. Whereas the American Rescue Plan Act was authorized in March 2021, and whereas the ARP Act eliminated the necessary school emergency relief as certified collected, our emergency radio is intended to address the impact that COVID-19 has had and continues to have on elementary and secondary schools in Virginia. And whereas Page County Children's Schools has been notified of ARP Act extra free fund allocations in the amount of $218,512, of which $83,447 is available for before and after school programs, $135,065 is available for summer programs and is available for use on a reimbursement basis. And whereas these additional federal ARP Act extra free funds will be used to support programs and activities consistent with addressing the unfinished learning in before and after school programs, as well as summer programs. And now therefore be it resolved that the Page County School Board, in order to respond to the impacts of COVID-19 on school operations, students and staff, respectfully request the Page County Board of Supervisors to appropriate the additional federal funding of $218,512.87 may increase the decrease in the local appropriation funds for the 2021-2022 school operating budget as follows. And
I have a motion to approve the resolution for the SR3 set aside.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution for the American Rescue Plan ARP ESSER 3 set aside grant funding for before and after school and summer programs.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Peter and a second by Mr. President Scoot to approve the SR3 set aside grant.
Mr. Lanford.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Dr. Peter.
Yes.
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 Yes. 8.07, approval of overnight field trips. Mr. Benson?
Good evening, members of the board. Once again, tonight we actually have 5 overnight field trips, so if you're going to bear with me here just a little bit, I'll do my best to try to get through those. So, well, I guess 7, depending on how you come. We'll let you determine that. How's that? So we have an overnight field trip request from both Page County High School and Page County Middle School for the state FCCLA conference in Virginia Beach. The conference does ask state officers to come down 2 days prior and stay 1 day after. So as Ms. Breeden-Wallace alluded to, it's actually 4 different requests because you have 2 from Page County Middle School for the state officers to do what, as I just described, and then 1 for the larger group. And then Page County High School also has a state officer going, or would like to go earlier, and then for the larger group as well. So that's a total of 4 different requests there. We did ask both organizations, the FCCLAs at both schools, to talk to us a little bit so we could be able to brief you tonight on COVID protocols and procedures for this conference. Masks must be worn at all times, and that includes all sessions and activities. Advisors are asked to enforce that. Participants may be dismissed for failure to comply with that. Participants may temporarily remove their masks for oral events only. We have checked with the room accommodations, and as I described to Dr. Fox, they are asking for 4 students per room just to help with pricing and overall cost for everything. So that's, I don't know how you want to handle these, if you want to handle them all at a time or one at a time.
Yeah, I think that's fine, because it's one action item under the, so I think we them all.
So we have 4 trips from total for the FCCLA state conference. 2 from Page Middle, 2 from Page High. We have a field trip request from Page County High School FBLA to go, this is an overnight field trip request. This is the weekend of, it's the second weekend in spring break. So it's the Friday, Saturday, Sunday of spring break. This trip is for the FBLA state conference up in Reston, Virginia. We have approximately 7 students interested in this. We do still have some that need to qualify. For this conference, masks are required. They denote at the conference they're going to have hand sanitizing stations. There will be no handshakes taking place at this conference. and they will be seating students as far as possible within the room at the hotel where it's going to be held. So they're going to maximize space in that regard. Students are asked to provide their own devices, writing utensils, and other things so that there won't be any sharing of materials. And for each of the different competitions, each student will receive a new packet of things. So no materials will be used by the same individuals. So 7 students from Page County High School for the FBLA State Conference. And then the last request this evening also comes from Page County High School, and this is from the wrestling team. We have potentially 1 or 3 wrestlers that are asking to participate in the state wrestling competition down in Salem, Virginia. So they would be staying overnight as part of their participation in the state wrestling tournament. And there again, for COVID, they're asked to comply with the the governor's order. Obviously, there's, if the participants would like to wrestle in a mask, they can, but there isn't necessarily a requirement for them to do so. This is an athletic competition.
What's the lodging for that event?
The lodging here is, again, basically, I think what's outlined on the request is the students going down. If their parents are going, they're going to stay with their family. And several have indicated that they are going. If not, then there will be 1 or possibly 2 students in a room. But you only have a total of 3.
And where's this?
This is down in Salem, Virginia.
Salem.
Can we back up to the 4 kids per room?
Can we make a motion first?
Okay,
And then
sure.
let's have discussion.
So those are all the requests for this evening.
I make a motion to approve the overnight field trips as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter. We have discussion?
Yeah. So where was it? 4 kids per room?
This is the state FCCLA conference.
And that's
Virginia Beach.
okay.
What about the other one, the FBLA? How were they saying? Did they say?
They're saying 3 to 4.
Okay.
So 4 and 3 to 4. Okay. So, okay. So masks obviously at all these venues, but nothing about vaccination, correct?
Nothing that requires vaccination.
So what do we think about that as school leaders, as PCPS leaders, just from a practical standpoint? I'm going to address the whole room.
In terms of requiring students to go on overnight field trips to be vaccinated?
Potentially. I mean, just the chance of transmission when you've got 4 kids or 3 kids in a hotel room and they're exchanging all that air while they're sleeping.
We haven't required vaccinations for anything else up to this point. One thing I did talk with Mr. Benson about was we want to make sure parents understand all the details of where they're going, and they make the decision whether or not they want their child to attend based on masking, based on how many kids are in a room. We did say if there were concerns about that, we'd certainly work with families. But at this point, we haven't put vaccination qualifications on anything else. There are some field trips that I believe, can I use PACA as the example? I believe when you all went just recently, there was a vaccination requirement for that. What we are asking families is if whatever the activity is, if that sponsor requires vaccinations, then we would honor that. In that particular situation, I believe 2 of the 4 were, but then ended up, they were already vaccinated. The other 2 decided to get vaccinated so they could participate. So we do have some students who are already vaccinated, so they would, obviously not follow that. But I think at this point, we haven't required it for anything else.
So there's a risk model that the government uses, right? So it's severity, probability, and exposure. It's called a SPE model. So what's the one that's way off the charts if you got 4 kids in a room for 8 or 9 hours a night? That's exposure, right? Because, so am I the only one in here that thinks that's a problem, potential problem?
No, we talked about it because there was a concern, and what we decided was to look at, some of these kids are already friends and are spending time outside of school already together. And we did put the caveat in there, if there were parents who were concerned about their children being in that room with 3 other people, that we would work with the families to compensate that and to reduce it to 2 if needed.
They didn't take you up on that offer?
I don't know yet. I think they're still in the early phases of making sure who's
I
going to
mean,
go and committing and all.
2 per room would help, but I just think that's, I don't know. The exposure level for that length of time just seems inordinate and not at all comparable to any of the events or other things that we've had kids involved in. That number of hours that they're together, without masks on.
So the practical, that, what was that?
That was at the Gaylord National Harbor in Oxon Hill, Maryland. So the CACA, the organization that actually put on the conference, required, they came out after actually everybody had already registered. For the most part, they came out with a vaccine requirement because it was kind of at the height of everything. So they then required all attendees to be fully vaccinated and show proof of vaccination. So we then notified the parents and the kids and, said this was a requirement from the conference. If they still wanted to attend, this is what we had to do to be able to attend.
I think we had one last time at Virginia Tech possibly, but I think Virginia Tech has changed their rules with that vaccination.
The rates for the FCCLA conference are approximately $175 a month. And so I think to answer the address Mr. Dewber's concern, I think the feeling is, yes, we would encourage to sleep with fewer students in a room as possible. So when you look at the cost, and you think of a single child absorbing 175 a night for 4, 5, 6 nights, from a cost factor, that's the thing.
So the room cost is for the families,
Well, for the
For
students,
the students.
the student paid the hotel company.
But what I don't want the message to be is that we're not willing to pay for student health and safety. I don't want that to be the message. So that was, the conversation was talk with kids and their parents, and if they're not comfortable being in a situation where there's 4 in a room, we'll find ways to supplement that, not necessarily at the school level, because I know they don't have the funds. We'll try to find the division level funds to support that. And having, that was the importance of making sure parents knew what the requirements were and what the conditions were going to be prior to them agreeing for their children to go on these activities. And that included if there were situations where vaccines were required, that they would need to know that information up front.
And that's a 2-day trip?
It's several days.
Okay.
It depends on what group you're in. If you're in the general group going, it's a couple days. If you're an officer, it's a
Right,
longer
the officers
period of time.
have
The 31st, the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd.
4 days. But the general population would only be going 2?
No, that's the general population.
That's the general okay.
The other population is the 29th, the 30th, the 31st, the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. So the state officers are there for, like I said, 2 days prior and then 1 day following the time. Well,
I personally feel like it goes back to the family. They have the option of, if they don't want them to be in a room of 4, they have to make that decision. Now, if you can help supplement or whatever, that's great, but I would not be in favor of requiring a vaccination.
Well, I'm not either, but is it worth us finding division funds to allow them to be 2 in a room?
But does the conference have space to
Exactly.
accommodate that for everybody?
Exactly.
I mean, we can certainly investigate it and look at it, and I can report back to you and share with you. I can't answer that question, and we'd have to talk to the sponsors to find out.
So it's 175 for the room, not per person,
correct, for the room.
for the room. So you divide that up.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah, we
that?
would just be doubling essentially. Whatever we're paying right now, we'll double that
Okay.
to split them out. But that's fine, we'll investigate that, we'll talk with the sponsors and see what the options are. And then we'll work to secure the division funding for that.
I mean, I like that idea because in one room, you're sleeping in the same bed, right?
You think you've got
Two
two
doubles.
beds. Yeah.
Two doubles.
They're considered suites, so they have a full-out.
Okay, we got to pull out.
Yeah, so, you know, sometimes if somebody that chaperones senior trips, you know, they make beds too, you know, they take the extra blankets and comforters and different things, and they create another sleeping quarters in the room, and they have to pull out they kind of create like 4 separate, you know, because there are students that aren't comfortable with that as well. That was before, prior to COVID.
And what date are those again? What's the date for those?
For the FCCLA trip?
Yeah.
The SDCLA trip runs for the officers the 29th through the 4th.
Okay.
For the
Of February.
March.
March. So that's more time, and you know, we follow the UK curve through this thing, as you can tell with the thing, so.
Yeah, and then the general population is going the 31st through the 1st.
I like the idea of giving them an opportunity to in a room, but, you know, do that out.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion?
Well, I just got one question. It's off this, but one of the citizens today said that there is a vaccine requirement for some program at Blue Ray High School, and that needs to be confirmed.
Yeah, I will look into that. I'm not
Okay.
sure what that is, whether it's a program, it might be all Virginia Fire, I don't know. We'll look into it and get back. I'll share information with you. We'll certainly address that concern. But at the school level, to participate in our spring concert or any event, there is currently not any vaccine requirements in the division for any activities or anything, for students or staff.
Yes.
Yes.
No. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Eight point zero eight, employee retirement incentive program. Dr. Johnson?
Thank you. Good evening, members of the school board. Each year in February, we bring before you the ERIP program, which is policy VCDG. And since 2010, you all have approved this policy annually, which allows qualified employees to select early retirement if they choose to do so at age 60. And I'll just review some of the credentials of this program for you. In order to be eligible for the ERIP program, you have to be age 60 by July the 1st of the preceding year, but you cannot have reached age 65. You have to have 20 years of full-time Virginia retirement system experience. You have to have 10 years of full-time service with Page County Public Schools, 5 years of full-time service with Page County Public Schools immediately preceding the retirement date, and 3 years consecutive of participation in the Page County Health Insurance Program immediately preceding. So you're talking about individuals that have put 20 years into the Virginia retirement system in education, 10 of those years being in Page County, and then 5 years immediately preceding the date that they request to retire. And so I met with Mr. Bell and Mrs. Seeley to make sure that this was still an effective use of Page County resources. Dr. Fox and I talked about it as well. And it does continue to provide the county with valuable substitutes, age 60 to 64, folks that may have chosen to retire and just walk away from education completely. Some of those folks have even done long-term substitute stints for us and been very helpful. One thing that's come up, and even since I've returned to this position in the last couple of weeks, I've had 2 folks reach out to me who are eligible by this criteria for the ERIP program, but they are running, either their license has expired or is getting ready to expire. And if you look If you look down to section 2D, if you can go down to the next page, there is a nugget there, and this has been in the policy for a long time, that states that these retirees have to maintain their teaching license. What has changed in the last couple of years is Virginia now has extended the Virginia license to 10 years. It used to be 5. And so the amount needed to renew that is more when you get into the 10-year cycle. It's also more costly now than it used to be. And so I had a lady the other day use as an example, say to me, I don't think I'm going to renew my license. I sure would like to stay in the ERIP program, and I think my 40 years experience would outweigh the credential of that license. And I thought, well, that's well said, but our policy is this currently. And so I came back to Dr. Fox, Mr. Bell, and Mr. Seeley to check on a couple of things. One, are there any VRS complications with this? And we found out there are not. It does not affect the retiree at all, whether they maintain their license or not as a substitute. Pitt County does not have a rule that substitutes must be licensed. So they would be okay there as well. And then Mr. Bell and I were talking about the IPAL report that we submit every year about who's covering what classes, who's licensed, and so on. But again, these folks are listed as substitutes, and so they don't track any IPAL. And so then the discussion was, in a time such as this when substitutes are so hard to come by, what are we gaining by leaving 2D in the policy if you so choose to renew ERIP? And so following all of that discussion, our recommendation would be that you approve ERIP again for this coming school year without section 2D, so that the retirees would not be required to renew their license if it was expired.
I have a motion to approve the ERIP.
I'll make a motion that we go with the early retirement incentive plan except for section D.
2D.
2D, yeah, I'm sorry, 2D. For the upcoming year.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Sullivan-Smith and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the employee retirement incentive program, taking out section 2D for this year. Do you have any discussion?
Got Title I hat on here, but if they're a long-term sub, you have to do the 4-week letters for those people that aren't. I have a question here that's reading it. I never really paid attention to it before. So let's say this, I don't understand it. If I say that come December, I just don't feel like going back after Christmas break. I'm retiring effective 2 weeks from now. Are they now eligible to participate in this?
So the way this works, once you all approve this, then Mrs. Seeley will plan a division-wide interest meeting. That occurs in the first week of March historically. And a meeting is held to explain to employees what this policy is, what the requirements are, and then the expectations as well. Next year, you receive the employer contribution on health insurance each month. In trade, you are required to give 25 full days of substituting. So the only way that you make the ERIP is you have to declare it. It's the informational meetings in the 1st of March. Typically, the deadline then, there's an official application. Typically, I believe the deadline would be April. I think that's what it is. So no, in your example, that would not be how you would get in.
Kind of sad. I was sitting here thinking, all right, if I was still here, I could do this right now.
No, Dr. Pink.
No, I can't stay at home.
So I seconded just to get it moving, so we have a discussion. I just like to hear from y'all's perspective, all three of you. What do you think about this proposal? What's
to
it
remove
gonna,
that piece.
yeah, what's it gonna do for us?
I think it's going to give us some people to substitute that wouldn't be eligible otherwise.
It is a lot of paperwork and stuff if you're not doing it every day.
I'll answer with, historically on the ERIP, Page County has approximately 5, it's not a lot of folks that are on the ERIP or that are eligible each year. But in this cycle alone, I know of 2 that are probably not going to be signed if it needs relicensing. So we use those folks to get a lot of days out of them, and the substitute pool is very small. So just a handful doesn't sound like a lot until you multiply it by 25 days next year and get the building. It's
It's a licensure renewal time within 10 years, the last time we fixed the new license, just to give you. Even we have. And so we would still ask, we still offer these individuals to participate in our division professional development activities and different things if they want to do so. I don't see any reason why if that was the meeting, I think.
I mean, I like it, the fact that it's more employee friendly, right? And it benefits you guys as well. Because who knows what's going to happen after this year, really.
Dr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Biggs?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Johnson, I believe you are up again with the lease extension for Roosevelt.
Yeah, so last week I had the privilege of meeting with 3 members of the Bible Holiness Christian Academy. Those are the folks that currently lease the Grove Hill facility. And I set out to do that just to find out what that was all about, because I had not interacted with those folks until that time. And we had a very thorough meeting in which they really took me through the use of our building, how that is going. They've been in it for a year and a half. Our lease ends in September, and so they were pleased to talk about the use of the building, and I can explain the number of rooms and the amount of the facility that they're using. But, and I can answer as many questions as you would like on that, but to make a long story short, they are interested in continuing the lease agreement. They're very pleased with how Page County has treated them, the access to the building, the quality of the building. And the only exception is they are asking if we would consider granting them one more space. It's a small room, room 129, which is behind the cafeteria area. It's already heated, so there is no additional cost as far as heating and that sort of thing. And so I came back and met with Mr. Williams to make sure from a maintenance perspective that wasn't going to change anything. Those folks do most of the small, minor maintenance themselves. We take care of the major maintenance, HVAC, electricity, we mow the facility, those kinds of things. In meeting with Dr. Fox, we talked about the amount, the monthly amount that we currently receive. Currently, this is a 2-year lease. The lease that we have clearly states that we reserve the right to go to a 1-year agreement if we so desire. So when Dr. Fox and I met, we don't see a problem with adding just one room. It's a very small space. It's in the same area as the rest of the building for those individuals. We believe it would be prudent to go 1 more year at the same rate to make sure we don't want to lock ourselves into 2 years and then find out there was something that we didn't expect by just adding that one room. So the request is to go back to these folks. They need at least 90 days because obviously if they didn't renew this lease, they're moving to school somewhere. So time is helpful to these individuals. So that's why we're out in front of this pretty early, just to be good neighbors. But the recommendation would be to renew this lease as is, except we would add a room to the room list into room 129, and we would adjust it to 1 year instead of 2. It currently reads September to September 2 years, and we would just relight it for September to September 1 year.
Make a motion that we accept the lease extension for Virgil.
Second.
We have a motion by Tanner and second by Sullivan Seat to approve the lease extension for Virgil. For discussion.
I just have a question. If we would ever have, like Shandor Elementary would have a fire or something, and we had to use that space, it wouldn't be available to us right through this lease.
According to, and I read this lease, and again, this is a little bit on the new side to me, but having read the lease, I read the lease that we can access this building other than the areas that we have leased out. So we leased out the main hallway, the office space, the kitchen and cafeteria, and next year would be 6 rooms, currently 5 rooms. So the rest of the building is still our building with our access, and we can come and go into that. What we can't do is disrupt, what they're doing with their school.
So they lease, what is it, 60% of the office and classrooms there?
Probably, yeah, good guesstimate.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 9.01, board member discussion time.
I'll just say, glad to see that the vaccination rate's coming up a little bit in Page County. That's encouraging. Try to encourage your kids to get vaccinated. That's one area where we can improve on. And I'm glad to hear that the school system is pushing out a lot of the mental health supports that we've heard about. And I hope that you continue to do that. It's been a rough 2-3 weeks for us in the community and the larger community. And I think everybody should kind of look out for each other, talk to each other. Thank you.
Yeah, just say something about the mental health part of it. I agree, and I think Toby had some very good comments today. And I wish we had more counselors. To the young people, it's been a tough 2 years. And what I would encourage parents and grandparents to do is turn off the news and get out involved in the community and talk to people. And I'm talking about all news, right or left. I think we spend way too much time getting angry at one another for no reason when we're a community. For young people, if you're struggling, get some help. When I was a kid, in 1986, I graduated. So we used to get underneath the desk for a bomb threat. And then AIDS come along. And we thought we couldn't get near anybody because it spread AIDS, right? Then a beautiful woman named Princess Di goes and hugs an AIDS victim in the hospital. And it takes that idea away from us. In the last 2 years, we've fed our kids fear and a little bit of hopelessness. And it's not hopeless. It's a hard time, but we're getting through it. You just got to hang on. And for the families that's suffering, I'm praying for you, and I hope we got it. I think Mr. Goober's right. We got to take care of one another when it comes to this. If you know something, say something and encourage them to get some help.
I'd like to piggyback that. Regardless of the age, whether you be elementary, high school, an adult, if you know you're having difficulty, number one, you've recognized it. And if you reach out, more than not, you're going to be okay. But you have to realize, and most people have a sense of, there is somebody that will be able to help you, but you have to recognize it, accept it, and ask for help. You are not a weak individual. by asking for help. So regardless of your age, someone that you trust or that you know well, it could be a teacher, it could be your neighbor, it could be your employer, whatever the case is, talk. Saying it and understanding or knowing that something's not quite right, that's your signal. Ask for help. You know, and again, a lot of people think, well, I'm a weak person, you know, I don't want people making fun or whatever. Don't worry about them. Worry about you. And there's lots of resources out there. If you're not sure, ask. There's no dumb question. It's the one that you don't ask that could take you down. And the bottom line is, school will help. Any school will help. All you got to do is say something. Don't be afraid. When you do, you're on your way to getting better for the most part. There's been a lot of sad things that have happened the last several weeks, like Mr. Hubler said. And you know, we're a small community. Neighbors, you know what's going on a lot of times, and you recognize, reach out. We all care. And be sensitive to the needs of others, and sometimes just listening is all they need. Sometimes just a smile is all they need. So consider all these things, because we're small enough and we have resources. It can work, but we need everybody's help.
We all go through self-doubt,
Oh, yes.
every single one of them.
Yes.
Insecurities, everybody goes through it, including a 54-year-old man.
And there's a lot of stress out there.
Yeah.
A lot of stress, for whatever reason. But again, let somebody know. Let somebody know. Can't say it? Write it down.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Paving, and a second by Mrs. Hubler. To adjourn.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Dr. Taylor? Mr. Virginia?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Yes.